Well, as you know, you have to be really pleased and proud of, after watching the film, of the way our players competed in the last game, the intensity that they had. Came out and played really well, especially in the first 30 minutes of the game, and we obviously still have plenty of things to improve on. But the last 17 minutes of the Arkansas game and the first 30 minutes of the Florida game is sort of the standard that we talk about that we want to play to, and everybody needs to have accountability to that standard. I think teams at this time of the year, definitely need to be aware of what their weaknesses are, individually and collectively, systematically, offensively, defensively, special teams, because at this time of the year, people start to see what you do, see what you're doing, how you're doing it, and that's when you start getting exposed if you don't get those things corrected. So that's why improvement, I think, is really, really important at this time of year for individual players in terms of what they do and how they do it, as well as what we're doing on offense, defense, and special teams. I think the biggest thing is the being able to continue to challenge yourself and challenge each other, to improve and play to a standard, and I think that's what we really want to try to do here. We obviously had some outstanding performances. I think this last game was a real team win, but Chance Warmack, who was the offensive lineman in the SEC, was he and Darius Hanks were the players of the week on offense. On defense, Courtney Upshaw, who was a defensive player in the SEC, and Mark Barron. And special teams, Trent Richardson and John Fulton. From an injury standpoint, Chris Jordan pulled his ham during the game. You never know how bad those things are. He'll probably be day-to-day, this week, and just see how he responds. Julio bruised his knee in the game. Again, you never know how these things are, but we did an MRI, checked it out, make sure he was okay. And he'll be day-to-day, at least for the first part of the week, and, see how he progresses. We had a tough physical game with these guys last year. They're a very good football team. And I think, one of the better teams relative to very well coached on defense and play tough, physical, got some good pass rushers, good skill guys in the secondary. They run, they're well. Offensively, Steve always does a great job of getting his players to be efficient and effective. This year they're able to run the ball a lot more effectively maybe than a year ago, probably because of the freshman back. Lattimore is really an outstanding player. And they've got some really good skill guys. Jeffrey's obviously the leading receiver in the league, and they play really sound and solid on special teams. So this is going to be a very challenging game for us, and we have to continue to challenge ourselves to do the things that we need to do to get better and play our best football. Hopefully we've learned that when we don't, good things don't happen. I know somebody's going to ask this about bye weeks, so I just want to clear this up for the year. Everybody out there assumes that having a bye week is an advantage, and I've always answered that question by saying I don't know if it's an advantage or disadvantage. So just so everybody knows, we did research on the last 5 years of all other 11 teams in the SEC and how they did after they had a bye week, and their record is 29-29. So I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong, but the statistics kind of prove that it's not an advantage or a disadvantage to have a bye week. Probably depends a lot on the circumstances.
Coach, the secondary done pretty well. Allowed some passes underneath, but haven't really allowed that big, long pass yet. How important is that, and how pleasing is it to you that no big, long plays?
Well, I think that we've still probably given up too many big plays, some intermediate passes, some over routes in this last game that we didn't match up correctly, and still need to be more disciplined in how we play to eliminate some of those plays. But I think in this game we'll be challenged because they have great size at receiver, and they have vertical receivers, and they will throw the ball down the field. So they did it last year, tried last year to throw several passes down the field against us, and I'm sure we're going to be challenged as much or more than we've been challenged all year in terms of the vertical passing game.
Coach, there was a report from ESPN yesterday that a former North Carolina coach contacted Marcell Darius over the summer to be an advocate for a particular agent. As a coach, do you find that maybe even a little bit more disturbing as opposed to that coming from an agent?
Well, first of all, I don't know anything about this. Secondly, it's, to me, water that's been under the bridge for several months now and is somewhere down in the Gulf of Mexico now. So I really don't have much care about talking about that. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the honesty, integrity, and professionalism of what we do as coaches, and if somebody does something to violate that, everybody can make their judgment as to what that is.
Your red zone defense has been phenomenal so far this year. 2 touchdowns and 14 opportunities for opponents. Is the part of you that's reaching for the high standards, though, disappointed that opponents have had those 14 opportunities?
Well, I think that playing in the red zone is a really important part of being a good defensive team. But I think there's a combination of things that make you a good defensive team. Most of the time when you don't give up big plays, and you play well in the red zone, you get pretty hard to score on. We've probably given up a few too many big plays. I don't know what the average number of opportunities for a team to be in the red zone at this point in the season would be. What have we played, 5 games? So if they've been down there 14 times, I wouldn't think that's too god-awful many, but I don't really know. And, the key thing is when you get there, you got to play the next play, and our guys have competed very well down there, and you have to give them credit for the tenacity that they have. Would we rather play and never let a team get down there? Sure. But we were better in the red zone last year, and I think that contributed to our success, and it's something that we've emphasized this year with this team, and certainly something that has been good for us so far. But the turnovers in the red zone and the big plays are probably the things that we need to continue to work and improve on.
And you say the Darius bit is water under the bridge, but still you've made a big issue out of the agent story. That it's,
yeah, the agents.
But it's
right. I'm not going to comment on coaches that do things that they have been accused of doing. I don't really know anything about this. I haven't thought about it. It's not important to me. I'm worried about South Carolina. So if you want to talk about that, we'll talk about that. But I'm not really going to talk about this anymore.
John Blake is not a pimp, then.
Is that South Carolina?
No.
I guess I must stutter. Do I stutter? I'm not very clear on how I articulate. Maybe I need to go back to West Virginia and get some more hillbilly slang, and maybe everybody can understand a little better.
Coach, the way the second half went against Florida, Mark didn't play a whole lot in the second half, and just wonder if that was kind of Trent was doing well, if that, and
No, there
Mark's
was
status is the same.
We didn't have the ball, unless we're going to play Mark on defense. When the other team has the ball for 13 and a half minutes in the third quarter, it's kind of hard to get him in the game. And we could put him in at linebacker, safety. If anybody has any, I'd be open to how you'd like to use them. But, if we get the ball, we need to keep it. We need to make some first downs, and, we rotate our guys. And when you didn't have the ball but 3 plays or whatever it was in the third quarter, it's hard to get any playing time if you're an offensive player. Barrett Jones didn't play much in the third quarter either.
Obviously, Nico had that great play in the first quarter. I'm just wondering, what your opinion is of how he's handled, what's happened with his life and whatnot over the past several months.
Nico's done a nice job. He continues to work and improve. He's got a good attitude. It's important to him. He prepares well for the games. We have a lot of competition at linebacker. We have a lot of different guys that contributed in the game. Chris Jordan played a role. C.J. Mosley played a role. Nico played a role. Dante played a role. We had a lot of guys that played roles at that position, and I think the combination of those guys continuing to flourish in those roles will be important for us. But Nico has done a good job for us all year, and I know that, some of these things are personal struggles when you have some of the things that happened to him in terms of losing people that are close to you, but I think he's handled it very well.
I know you say every time you play good teams, you learn a little bit more about your team. Do you guys, your coaching staff, have a handle on the identity of this team, or do you still need to see more?
Well, I really think our team is progressing, but each week you have a new challenge and you learn more about your team, like how are we going to respond this week. We play another very, very good team on the road in a difficult place to play. Are we going to be able to challenge ourselves to continue to do the things we need to do to play at a high standard? We're going to be relieved about what we've accomplished to this point. I can't answer those questions. They have to come from within and what people want to accomplish and what they want to do. And so far we've responded fairly well, but not consistently all the time. And I think that's something that we want to continue to work on.
Couple things. One is your defense. You talked about the red zone and everything. Your defense has shown some knack for forcing some interceptions, some timely turnovers and everything. What's the key to that for you guys?
Well, I think execution, is really important when you play any defense, anytime. But I think when the field shrinks and you play pass defense in the red zone, you don't have the vertical separation in the field like you have out when the ball's in the field. So everything gets condensed. The areas for the quarterback to throw gets condensed. We've done a good job of executing so far down there. And the big thing is you stop the run so you make them pass. And that's the most important thing. Most really good teams in the red zone run the ball effectively. And if you can force them to throw, it's a little more difficult to throw it down there. You got more people in a lot less space, and we've done a pretty good job of executing what we do. We've practiced it a lot, and our players have responded well to it.
And completely unrelated, Mark Ingram obviously had a huge game against South Carolina. Did he do anything in that game that made you go, wow, the kind of performance he had?
Well, I think that was one of Mark's best games last year. It was very difficult for us, game for us in terms of we had some success running the ball. He had success running the ball, but we didn't have balance in our offense, and it became sort of a running game for us, which I'm hopeful that we can continue to create balance in our offense. And Mark had an outstanding day, and I think that was a real key for us. We scored a touchdown on defense last year and 13 points on offense, and we're going to probably need to be more productive than that this year.
Coach Saban, where do you think your defense is right now in terms of maturity, confidence, and just gelling together?
We're growing. We need to continue. I think the people need to challenge each other every day to get better. We need to have a little more maturity in how we prepare for games, how we practice, so that we can continue to get better. I do think that there are more players playing with more confidence. I think we played faster in the last game. We responded more quickly. We played with more confidence, but I think we need to continue to build on that and get more and more players, sort of in that psychological disposition. And I think we can continue to improve if we do that.
Hey, Coach, you've talked in the past about breaking up the season into halves. This would be the 6th game and kind of a rough stretch here of 3 games. Are you still applying that, and is the South Carolina game kind of the natural break?
This is not a break. I don't know what you mean by, is this a break? There is no breaks, not in this league, until you get a bye week. And then you usually have to really work hard to prepare for the next teams that you're playing, especially if they do anything differently. than what you've seen to that point in the season. So this is not a time to let your guard down. This is not a time to revel in what past accomplishments you've had. This is a time to challenge yourself and each other to continue to play at a high standard, and that's certainly what we're trying to get our team to do.
Coach, obviously this has to do with the opponents and the situations, but is there a little bit of concern that you haven't had many big passing plays the last couple weeks?
Well, we always want to make explosive plays, you know, and Florida played a lot of man-to-man in a game, and we didn't separate well all the time, and when we did separate, we missed a couple throws. And we probably need to stretch the field vertically a little bit more and continue to try to make big plays down the field. We have some people who can do that, and I think that's, you know, something that's important. But when we tried a couple in the last game, they were covered. So we need to do a better job of separating. I think sometimes we get a little impatient, and you can't do that when people are playing close coverage. You know, you usually beat them not down the field, but at the line or out of the break. And you got to have a lot of patience and confidence to be able to do that. And I think our guys are playing with confidence, but sometimes I think when they get close coverage, they get a little impatient.
You said this is a point in the season where teams need to identify their weaknesses. Is there one area in particular for y'all that you feel like y'all need to shore up on as far as offense, defense, or
Well,
special teams?
we have plenty, you know, and I think that and they're not always sort of consistently identifiable. Some games we have thrown the ball extremely effectively on offense. In other games, you'd like to do it a little better. You know, defensively, we've given up far too many big plays, made lots of mental errors that we need to continue to clean up and play with consistency. You know, on special teams, we finally hit a punt return last week, and you know, our return game and our special teams, we want to continue to improve. So I think in just about every area that you look at, there's something that we can improve on. And even the things that we've done well, we'd like to continue to stress being able to do better. So I don't think you've ever arrived. I don't think you're ever where you'd like to be. So there's a lot of things that we need to continue to focus on and improve on.